Hello, grade 10 scholars. It's Miss Novak here, and we are in lesson 18 of week 4 ELA online learning. Before we begin our lesson, let's always note that each lesson is different with its own challenges and celebrations. You'll always have a list of materials ready for the lesson. We'll always engage in that brief overview of learning for the lesson. I'll be providing you with a quick model of the particular task associated with that day's learning. And of course, we'll preview the learning for tomorrow's lesson, which is the last day of the week. ELA fun fact of the day. Did you know that the English language has more words than most languages? Not all, but most. There are currently an estimated 1 million words in the English language. When we talk about the volume words, however, it's important to keep 3 key numbers in mind. First, that there's more than 1 million words. That's a big number. Please note, though, that an estimated 170,000 words are in current use. Certainly not in my vocabulary, but overarchingly so in all areas and fields of study, there's about 170,000 words in use. Still, note that all of us, we probably only use about 20,000 to 30,000 words. We're constantly learning and introducing new vocabulary words each and every day. I know that I gained at least 2 from reading this particular essay this week. So just keep in mind, those are continuously growing. About 1 million, can you believe it? We know the deal with these packets. First of all, we are still in week 4. We're almost at the end. This is May 4th to May 8th. We might be behind 1 week, but most of us are right there. Please note that you can subscribe to this YouTube channel and listen to lessons from weeks prior or rewatch these videos. Tell your friends that seeing these videos are as easy as scanning that QR code. Same direction, same guiding questions. How do we decide what we value? And how do we distinguish between wants and needs? Again, these questions come up every single day as we're reading, even when we're reading a nonfiction literary journalism piece. Materials and resources for this lesson. So we are right there in day 4 of this week. We will be using the same video, ELA G10 W4 L18, same text in La Rinconada, Peru, Searching for Beauty and Ugliness. But today we're going to be analyzing elements of subjectivity and objectivity. Sounds scholarly? Because it is. The materials for this lesson, as always, can be found inside of your learning packet and this video online. The learning target for today's lesson. Let's read it through. I can identify the essential elements of literary nonfiction and literary journalism and provide examples of each element from a given text. We know that the given text is what we're reading all throughout this week, so it shouldn't be too hard for us to find these different elements. Let's move through the reading and thinking components of today's lesson. You'll be reading and reviewing your annotations from days prior. You'll also be looking at the description of literary nonfiction on your note catcher. This can actually be found in the next day's lesson, in lesson 19's note catcher. So you might have to flip forward a couple of pages. Also, we want to be thinking about the concepts of subjectivity and objectivity. Subjectivity is part of someone's personal feelings and attitudes towards a thing or a situation. Whereas if someone adopts an objective viewpoint, they really rely on facts and observations. Something that might be true for everyone. We'll ask you to document your thoughts on subjectivity and objectivity in the space provided in your note catcher. Here's where we'll get to apply our learning and the talking and writing components of today's lesson. Again, after reviewing that description inside of lesson 19's note catcher, let's think about why it's important to remain objective when writing. So for example, authors will focus on facts in this story, but they'll add their own personal flair. This is especially true for this week's text. As we know, the author or the writer was actually from Peru, so she's bringing a lot of her personal insight and personal experience to the table. Your writing task for today, however, is to lift up a instance or a detail within the text and state whether that is subjective or objective, right? So we're actually asking you to apply your learning of these two concepts and put it into play. Again, there's always going to be space for this in your note catcher. Make sure you're writing in full and complete sentences too. Much appreciated. As always, we'll ask you to share your lesson and your learning with someone at your household. We'll also ask you to please keep up with your daily practice of reading for 20 minutes, a book of your selection. I'm still on it, haven't made my way through, but it is really interesting. And again, I really feel like this is developing habit. Let's get really clear about the characteristics of literary nonfiction, which is what this text is from this week. In La Rinconada, a search for beauty in ugliness. So journalism, as most understand, is nonfiction that presents objective or neutral facts about a newsworthy story or situation. Works of journalism focus on current events or on situations with continuing relevance, so things that still matter to us in the present day. Literary journalism presents the same types of fact-based information as regular journalism, but does not remain objective. Instead, it is subjective or includes the author's personal observations and feelings. We definitely saw this in this week's reading. Please note the importance of acknowledging that the writer or the author was actually from Peru. At certain points, it actually felt like we were there with her on this journey up to Sleeping Beauty. Did it not? Literary journalism often uses the following techniques that are usually associated with fiction. Let's try to remember any of these techniques that we saw in the story. This will also help you with your writing assignment today. Descriptive language and imagery. We definitely saw descriptive language in this. Every other paragraph, every other line, it seemed, has figurative language that's used so beautifully to describe, at times, a really unfortunate situation. The writer's personal observations, thoughts, and feelings. Again, didn't feel like we were right there with her, riding up the steep and winding road to the Sleeping Beauty. Also a sense of story with a beginning, middle, and an end. This didn't feel like a traditional essay, right? It felt and read more as if it were a story. Think about those elements and how you might be able to explain them in writing. Let's make sure we're clear about this writing assignment. So we know that an important skill to have as a reader is the ability to decipher or to tell the difference between imagery, facts, and observations. To reinforce the learning of this lesson, we're going to again lift up a passage or detail and describe whether or not we think the statement is true for everyone or just the writer. Please note that facts will be true no matter what and no matter who is speaking, but imagery and observations, those are really personal. So let's get into this. Here's a quick model. I'm going to reference paragraphs 11 and 19 of the text. First, I'm going to try to decipher between facts, which is true for everyone, and personal observation and imagery. So first I see this line, I almost convinced myself that this trip would continue its happy paved course into the horizon. Next, I lifted the line, although the king's mines collapsed in the 1700s under the weight of the glacier and were abandoned for 200 years, interest in the Anania was rekindled in the 1960s when teams of European and Japanese mountaineers scaled the stretch known as the Cordillera Real. Two different types of lines here. Note that this is true for just the writer, the first one here. I almost convinced myself, even though it uses the pronoun I, this is clearly an observation and is injected with feeling. Whereas these lines down here, this is true for everyone. These are facts about the history of that time and of the region. I want to reiterate a key element of literary nonfiction and journalism in general. It really tries to raise something that is still relevant today. I wanted to provide you with a visual snapshot of what this actually looks like in the here and now. So note the road to the highest town on earth takes you through a rubbish dump. The waste is heaped up on either side of the road. The minibus proceeds at walking speed. This pothole track is the only access road to a town with an estimated 60,000 inhabitants, which exists for one reason: gold. The sign at the entrance to the town reads La Ricanada. Can you believe that this is the actual journey that the author took in this piece of writing? Feel free to research on your own. It's quite interesting, and it definitely will make you think twice about your reaction to this essay. And now it's your turn. Please take out your text in La Rinconada, Peru, Searching for Beauty and Ugliness. Now, we know that our writing task is to lift up a detail or a passage and identify whether it's true for just the writer or for everyone. Challenge yourself like I did and try to select something that is true for everyone, that includes facts, and something that's only true for the writer, that includes imagery and personal observations. As always, share your assignment with someone at home, and make sure to continue to read for 20 minutes each night and to document your reading journey. Lesson 19, we are almost at the end of the week, so let's preview tomorrow's learning. The target for tomorrow is, I can identify key elements of literary journalism in an article or an essay and can explain each element through examples. So we kind of scratched the surface today. Tomorrow we'll really exercise our muscles around what literary nonfiction is and what literary journalism is as well. As always, if you have any questions about the text or about your assignment that you're unable to answer during class time, please feel free to email your teacher for support. Their email is their first name dot their last name at detroitk12.org. Just like this, they'll be happy to hear from you. Thank you so much for learning with me today. As always, a few quick reminders. Talk to someone about your learning today, especially because it applies to all different types of reading material. Also, make sure you keep on reading for 20 minutes each night and that you put your reading efforts in your reading log. And don't forget to practice your reading fluency. Reading with inflection and purpose is a really important skill. This lesson and this video is brought to you by the Office of English Language Arts and Literacy. We really look forward to continuing this learning with you and can't wait to pick back up tomorrow.